I'm Mary Griffith, and I'm the Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension Educator in Madison County, Ohio. In this video, we're going to focus on grazing native warm season grasses. Native warm season grasses are bunch grasses, which grow in clusters with space between plants that allow wildlife to use that space to nest and forage for food. So we hear a lot about the benefits that native warm season grasses have for wildlife, but they also have many advantages as forages for livestock. So in this video, we're going to focus on incorporating native warm season grasses into grazing operations. An advantage of native warm season grasses is that since they're native species, they're adapted to our area, which means they're relatively resilient to the pests and diseases and weather that we experience in Ohio. And so they typically require relatively lower input costs once they're established. For many producers, one of the big hurdles to grazing native warm season grasses is the longer establishment period that's associated with these grasses. So we're going to start off taking a look at some examples of first and second year stands of native warm season grass pasture in Ohio and share some different management practices that have allowed those producers to be successful in establishing robust native warm season grass stands. We're also going to take a look at a more mature stand of native warm season grasses and talk with that producer about important management considerations for maintaining that stand once it's been established. And then finally, we're going to take you to a field of native warm season grasses that's being used for hay. The species you're going to see in this video are switchgrass, eastern gamagrass, Indian grass, big bluestem, and little bluestem, which are some of the more commonly used species for livestock forage.
So warm season grasses are considered carbon pathway 4 plants, which is in contrast to carbon pathway 3 plants, which are cool season grasses. And basically that means that they're more efficient at harvesting CO2 than our cool season plants, and they're more efficient at photosynthesis. So given the optimum growth conditions for both forages, they can grow better at worse times. So this is an example of big bluestem in its 4th growing season. You can compare this to our younger stands. You can see it's really tillering, or it's getting more stems to it, and it's becoming more of a robust plant above ground but also below ground. Native warm season grasses can have root systems 5, 10 or more feet deep, and that allows them to harvest nutrients and water when other forages really aren't able to. So they're pretty drought tolerant as far as a forage goes. We're out here at J&R Farms in Clinton County, Ohio, and today we're going to be showcasing native warm season grass pasture. This site was seeded about 4 months ago in May, and this is Indian grass, big bluestem, and little bluestem. In 2019, this field was corn, and the producer, after the corn was harvested, planted cereal rye as a cover crop, and that was grazed. And in the spring of 2020, this spring, that cereal rye was terminated and native warm season grasses were planted. And along with the native warm season grasses was used a specialty herbicide, which is a mazapic, and that was intended to suppress the other. It's a pre and post emergent, so it suppresses a lot of the other competition other than Indian grass, big bluestem, and little bluestem. So this producer was able to really mitigate the competition with this native warm season grass, and ideally it'll be grazed in 1 year after it was planted. For a long time, establishment has kind of been the burden of native warm season grasses, but here's a good example that, you know, with proper management and planning, you can have a very good stand in about a year that can be grazed. So next we're going to look at a site that did not use herbicides, but instead used high mowing to reduce the weed competition. This establishment time is going to be a bit longer, but it's still a really successful stand. We're out here in Ross County looking at a 1-year-old stand of native warm season grasses. And last year this was soybeans. You can still see the soybean stubble from the prior year, from 2019. And this was seeded with native warm season grasses. And as far as competition control, this was clipped twice this year, about at 8 to 12 inches. And really that was managing for reducing the competition for our native warm season grasses. Foxtail and common ragweed are annuals that put a little bit of competition on these seedlings. In the future, our perennial plants, our native grasses, will continue to be more robust and outcompete any annual vegetation that's there. So we're in Darke County in another example of native warm season grass pasture. This pasture was seeded in spring of 2019 with Indian grass, big blue stem, and little blue stem. And it was converted from a tall fescue pasture. So starting out, we had a little bit more competition, but as you can see, we have a good stand of native grasses coming into the second growing season. And we got quite a few grazable days this year off of this pasture. So the growing point on native grasses is higher than cool season grasses. So we really made sure this first year that we stayed 12 to 14 inches, and we let the native grasses have plenty of recovery time, and we weren't damaging the plant at all. So this is a site that we wanted to show you in Ross County, Ohio, and this is an example of using native warm season grasses for hay production. So when it comes to haying native warm season grasses, timing is key to make sure you're getting optimum forage quality and optimum yield. This particular site was hayed in early July of this year, and you'll see they stayed up about 8 inches in height. Our cutting height is 8 inches, and that allows us to get maximum recovery on our plants, like you can see here, and it also allows us to do minimal damage to the plant and its root system. Native warm season grasses are most successful in a rotational grazing system. Rotational grazing maximizes forage yield that a pasture can produce and allows for recovery time of the plants and their roots. There are many other benefits, including improved soil health and fertility and weed suppression.
Hello, I'm Bill Wickerham. I'm the wildlife specialist with Adams Soil and Water Conservation District, and I'm standing out in my field on my farm where I farm with my brothers Dan and Mark at End of the Ridge Farms in Adams County, south of West Union. What we're standing in here right now is about a 5-year-old stand of switchgrass and eastern gamma grass. We've got our cows in here. We're doing the rotational grazing. They've been in here one day, and we're getting ready to move them to the second paddock. The two species that we have in here is switchgrass, which is this one here on my left, and eastern gamma grass here on my right. The gamma grass has already matured and gone to head and has dropped its seed. So you won't see the seed from it. The switchgrass is about ready to be harvested as far as the seed. So it's going to disperse its seed here real soon. The reason why we use these warm season grasses is in our rotational grazing. It gives us another forage that we can utilize during that summer slump. This time of year in August and September, when all the cool seasons have gone dormant, we're able to put them in here on this. Okay, so we're out here with the cows. The cows are back here in the background. One of the advantages of doing rotational grazing is that the cows become very acclimated to people. So a lot of people in a conventional system will have their cows trained to a bucket. Ours are trained to polywire, or in some cases poly tape. This is simply electric fence. It's a plastic type fence. It's real easy to set up and tear down and move from place to place, and they become trained to it, so we can actually use it to cut an animal out of the herd if we need to, rather than attracting them with a bucket. since we don't use any grain on our farm, we use this poly wire. Now, one of the things that I hear a lot about is how hard this is to deal with. In this particular case, we use a simple battery charge or a fence charger here that's hooked to a 12-volt battery. So when navigating through the poly wire, you can simply step on it, and then I can unplug it and it's turned off. So to set this up and tear it down, you know, I can carry this battery around. We typically carry it on the golf cart. To hook it up to this fence, you simply just wrap it around this wire. Okay, now that's separated, and now we have the fence charger hooked to a pigtail step-in stick, so we can move that anywhere we want. We got multiple fence chargers on the farm, so we just move them to where the cows are going to be. And to set it up, just stick that in the ground, take your hot wire, just wrap it around there several times, and then that's all there is to it. It's now hot. So when we brought the cows into this particular field, this switchgrass is about this high. I ran this wire through there, and it's kind of hard for me to even see, but we put that wire up through there, the cows came right to the wire and stopped.
Native warm season grasses can have many benefits to wildlife as well as to livestock grazing systems, but they do need to be managed differently than cool season grasses. Native warm season grass stands can be slow to establish, but once established, a healthy stand can last a long time with low input costs, and they can provide for livestock during the summer slump. Selecting the right species, seeding right, maintaining soil fertility, and managing weeds during establishment can be critical to establishing a healthy stand. Producers looking for guidance on establishing or maintaining pastures with native warm season grasses can contact their local USDA service center or their county extension office for technical assistance. And your local USDA service center can also provide financial assistance to landowners interested in these types of projects. If you're located in one of the shaded counties on this map, you are in an area that is part of the Working Lands for Wildlife program, which is a USDA NRCS program. And Jason Jones, our grasslands and grazing coordinator, is a part of that program. The goal of Working Lands for Wildlife is to assist producers with incorporating native warm season grasses into their grazing operations as a good alternative for summer grazing.